Worms escaping? Fix these 10 composting mistakes before it's too late. Worms are supposed to be the composting superheroes, right? But even the best intentions can lead to a worm-tastic disaster. If your once thriving worm bin is now suspiciously quiet, or worse, full of escapees, you might be unknowingly sabotaging your soil allies. Vermicomposting is an incredible way to turn everyday scraps into garden gold, but it's easy to get it wrong. In this video from Soil and Crop Central, we're cutting through the confusion with real facts, not fluffy tips, and exposing the top 10 composting mistakes that make worms flee. Whether you're new to composting or have been doing it for years, chances are you're making at least one of these critical errors. Fix them, and your worms will stay, thrive, and turn your waste into powerful, nutrient-rich compost. Your worm bin isn't just dirt, it's a habitat. Think of your worm bin like a mini ecosystem. It needs balance, moisture, airflow, temperature, space, and the right food. When one part of that equation is off, your worms feel it. And if conditions get hostile, their instincts kick in. Get out or die trying. It's not drama, it's biology. Let's dive straight into the 10 mistakes that cause the most worm exits and show you how to fix them fast. You're overfeeding, and it's not a treat. Too much food is one of the fastest ways to kill the vibe, and your worms. Excess scraps rot before your worms can eat them. That creates a soupy, smelly, acidic mess that no worm wants to live in. You'll often see worms trying to climb the sides of the bin or huddled in dry corners. Stick to the 1-to-1 rule. For every cup of food scraps, add an equal amount of bedding, like shredded newspaper or cardboard. It keeps the moisture in check, soaks up any goo, and keeps airflow moving. If your bin starts to stink, you've gone too far. Scoop out some of the uneaten food, fluff the bedding, and rebalance. So you've made it either too wet or too dry. Worms actually breathe through their skin, and well, their skin only works when it's moist. But that doesn't mean they want to swim around. A soaking bin can go anaerobic, meaning there's no oxygen, and that can be deadly for your worms. On the flip side, if the bin dries out, worms can't breathe and they'll dry up. Here's the moisture fix. Perform what's called the squeeze test. Just grab a handful of bedding and give it a squeeze. If water drips out, it's too wet. If it crumbles like dry leaves, it's too dry. What you want is that damp, wrung-out sponge feel. To fix a wet bin, just mix in some dry shredded cardboard or paper. To fix a dry bin, spray gently with dechlorinated water. Start with about 1 cup of water per gallon of bedding and test again after an hour. Maybe you're giving them the wrong food. Sure, worms love food scraps, but not just any old food. Tossing in meat, dairy, citrus peels, or oily leftovers is basically asking for disaster. These foods attract pests, release foul odors, and create acidic conditions that can harm or even kill your worms. Here's what they do love: veggie peels, coffee grounds, crushed eggshells, tea leaves. Just remember, no staples, banana peels, and shredded paper. Chop or blend your scraps before feeding to help speed things up. And avoid onions, garlic, citrus, spicy foods, and anything greasy. These don't just smell bad, they actually stress your worms and can even lead to escape attempts. You might have forgotten about the bedding. Bedding isn't just some filler, it's actually your worm's real home. Good bedding regulates moisture, traps odors, and gives your worms a place to hide and rest. Without it, they're exposed and uncomfortable. So, use clean, chemical-free options like shredded cardboard, newspaper, black and white only, coconut coir, aged straw, or dry crushed leaves. Always keep about 3 to 4 inches of bedding on top of the food layer. It helps keep the smell in and pests out, and it gives your worms a safe place to retreat when the food gets, well, a little funky. So, you're not prepping the food, huh? Well, let me tell you, unshredded scraps take quite a bit longer to break down. And you know, that delay can lead to some sour smells and even pest problems, especially if the worms can't chow down fast enough. Prepping your food speeds things up dramatically. The fix? Pre-compost those food scraps. You can chop, shred, or even freeze and thaw them to soften the fibers. Let them sit in a sealed container for, 24 to 48 hours at room temperature to kickstart that microbial activity. When you add these prepped scraps to the bin, they break down faster, reducing stress on your worm community. You're not checking for trouble, are you? Worms don't talk, but, they sure give you signs when something's wrong. If they're climbing the walls, mass migrating, or turning sluggish and skinny, it's time for an inspection. Go ahead, sniff the bin. It should smell earthy, not like rot or garbage. If it reeks, you've likely overfed or the moisture is off. Seeing fruit flies or maggots? That means there's exposed food or too much moisture. Solve it by burying food deeper and adding dry bedding. Still not sure? Take a look at the color of the bedding. If it's turning gray or sticky, that's a sign of anaerobic breakdown. Fluff it. Air it out. Cut back on feeding for a few days. The bin is turning acidic, huh? A pH imbalance can sneak up fast. Worms prefer a near neutral pH, around 6.5 to 7. Too much citrus, tomato, vinegar, or fermented waste can create an acidic environment that burns their sensitive skin. Here's how to fix that. Add crushed eggshells or finely ground agricultural lime. Not hydrated lime, agricultural lime. 1 tablespoon per square foot of bin surface area once per week can help maintain balance. Stir it lightly into the top layer and monitor for a couple of days. You're overcrowding the bin. Believe it or not, you can have too many worms. When the population booms, food disappears faster than you can supply it. That leads to stress, competition, and eventually a crash. If your bin is crawling with worms and nothing's breaking down, it's time to harvest some compost and separate the worms. Or, start a second bin. A typical 10-gallon bin comfortably supports around 1,000 worms. So, give your worms space to breathe, move, and eat in peace. You're letting pests move in. If you've ever popped the lid and found ants, flies, or even mice, it's a sign your setup isn't secure. Exposed food scraps, poor ventilation, and soggy bedding all invite unwanted guests. Keep your bin covered at all times with a breathable lid or a thick layer of bedding. Don't let food sit uncovered. Choose a shaded, sheltered location, out of direct sun and away from rain. And make sure your bin has proper drainage holes so nothing turns into a swamp. You're not aerating the bin. Compost bins need oxygen, and so do your worms. If the bin becomes compacted from too much wet bedding or overfeeding, oxygen gets squeezed out, and you're left with an anaerobic, smelly disaster. Mix the contents of the bin gently once a week. You don't have to flip it completely, just stir it lightly with your hands or a garden fork to fluff up the bedding and let air in. This alone can fix a sluggish bin and bring your compost back to life. The bottom line, your worms want to stay, if you let them. Worms aren't running away to be dramatic, they're trying to survive. Every escape is a sign that something's off. The good news? You now know what to check, what to fix, and how to keep your bin thriving. Take care of your worms and they'll take care of your garden. Rich, dark, fluffy compost doesn't come from guessing, it comes from getting the basics right. So next time you peek into your raised bed and wonder, where did all my worms go? You'll have the answer. And even better, you'll have the fix. Keep your bin in balance and let your worms work their magic, right where they belong. Subscribe to Soil and Crop Central for more real-world composting tips that actually work. Don't just compost, compost smartly and intelligently.